I'm Scott Winberry, and the subject I chose was the environment, and the three major disasters was Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and Fukushima, Japan. Throughout history of the Earth, there have been many devastating environmental accidents that have had an impact on society and the changing of it. Events ranging from oil spills to chemical fires, society has changed its regulations and adapted to the events in the past. Three of the worst environmental disasters that were caused by man were Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and Fukushima, Japan. Over the years, the environment and people's safety have been affected by these disasters. The ongoing theme is to keep these plants running and not attempt to find greener ways to produce and use electricity. Chernobyl was a nuclear power plant that was built in Ukraine. On April 26, 1986, a system test was run on reactor number 4. During the test, there was a sudden power outage and the workers attempted an emergency shutdown. This resulted in a huge power spike and caused the reactor to explode. More smaller explosions occurred, exposing the graphite moderator. When this was exposed to the air, it exploded, releasing huge amounts of radiation into the atmosphere. The radiation was aided by winds and traveled over Russia and Europe. Fires were burning on top of buildings in Chernobyl around the area. Fire crews were dispatched to put out the blazes. None of the fire crews were told about the radiation exposure and that the core reactor had been breached. Many firefighters were on the roof and tried to fight the fire and ended up dying within minutes of the exposure. The exposure spread over 100,000 miles of land and that was contaminated by radiation. Most of the agriculture was killed within 2 weeks of the exposure. Within 3 or 4 years after, the vegetation began to grow back, but we are not able to tell the effects for 3 or 4 generations after the exposure. There is not much living inside the exposure zone, and people are not allowed there. This normally takes many years to show the effects of radiation in animals affected by the disaster. They have since blamed the mishap on operator error and people not trained properly with any communication between the changing shifts. The next event was the 3 Mile Island disaster. 3 Mile Island was a plant near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. On March 28, 1979, a small valve that is used to relieve pressure on the reactor opened but did not close. This caused the core to overheat. The wrong information was being sent to the workers, so they shut the water down that goes to the reactor. This caused it to overheat and nearly melt the core down. The workers erred in not releasing the water into the core to lower the temperature and were not trained properly. We do not know the true extent of the effects of radiation because of the length of time it takes for the radiation exposure to show. Several studies did find out that 1 million people around the area were exposed to a small amount of radiation over a 5-mile area. The last environmental disaster is the Fukushima nuclear disaster. When an earthquake and tsunami hit Japan, the nuclear power plant melted down, releasing radiation into the water and food supply. On March 11, 2011, an earthquake measuring 9.0 hit the country of Japan. The earthquake caused a tsunami to cover the electricity. It caused the electricity to go out and stop water from entering the cooling towers for the reactors. During the night, 3 of the reactors exploded and caused a meltdown, releases of high levels of radiation into the water and air. The radiation eventually has gone into the food supply, and it is not yet known how bad or far-reaching the radiation has gotten. An investigation concluded that the Fukushima nuclear plant was not ready or able to withstand an earthquake or tsunami. The government, again, like others, has not released all the information or the correct information about the meltdown. New studies and tests have revealed that the power plant released twice as much radiation as earlier stated by the Japanese government. The issue that is being brought up is we do not know the true effects of radiation in the environment because of the period of time it takes to show. People affected by the radiation leaks can pass the poisoning to their children and their children's children. The release of radiation into the air can kill forests, streams, and the wildlife around it. In each of these accidents, it has been operator error that caused the leaks or just not built properly. Nothing has changed over the years to better protect the environment or the people around the plants. From Chernobyl to Fukushima, the causes have not been addressed or corrected. There have been reports of cancer clusters and outbreak beside nuclear power plants, and officials claim there is no link to the plants. We do not know enough and do not handle the plants well enough to keep them in operation. Government should fund a more environmentally safe way to produce energy and support it. And I have a couple pictures. This is the contamination area around Japan. And that's showing how it's about 10 miles from the power plant. And that's a couch. And then that's 3 Mile Island. And that's showing the cancer effects, the radiation effects on a child that was next to Chernobyl. Thank you.